Hey gang, have you ever watched a movie with a really sad ending to it? There's something about a sad ending to a movie that's sort of unsettling. We expect movies will resolve with a sort of happily ever after ending, but sometimes they don't. If you've been walking through the book of Romans with us, up until this point, you may be wondering, how's this going to end? What's going to be the fate of Paul's people, the Israelites? They've rejected Paul's mission to the Gentiles. They've rejected Jesus. And let's be honest, they're not going well for them. How is this movie going to end? Well, I want you to stay tuned because the ending is about to change. Anyone remember the 1990s movie Titanic? It's one of those movies where you sort of knew before you even started the movie how it's going to end, right? But in addition to the ship going down, the movie tells the story of those two characters on the ship, first class Rose and third class passenger Jack, who quickly fall in love on this ill-fated ship. In the final scene, you may remember, having survived the ship going down, now they're sort of adrift at sea. Do you remember what happens? They're drifting at sea, and that's when Jack slips into the water and he dies. It's this heart-wrenching Hollywood drama at its best. What a sad ending. Well, up until this point in the book of Romans, things don't look so good for Paul's people, his fellow Israelites. He's spent several chapters now lamenting the fact that they've rejected his mission to the Gentiles. They've turned their backs on this idea that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God. Even though they were the first adopted by God, even though God first chose the Israelites, first gave them the covenants and the laws and temple worship and all God's promises, even though the ancestry of Jesus comes from them, they've rejected Jesus. And to be honest, if you've been following along, it leaves us thinking this isn't going to go well for the Israelites. In the first 10 verses of Romans chapter 11, Paul explores that question. What are the implications of Israel's hard-heartedness? What does it mean that his people are turning away from God at the very moment when God is extending a hand, if you will, to even more of the world? How can there be a future with God for people who have rejected God and God's mission and God's desires? Well, Paul here, he anticipates an ending to this story. And to be honest, it's not a tragic ending like we might expect. He does not expect that the Israelites will magically change their minds. There will be no mass conversion, no aha moment for them. But he's clear about one thing. God will remain faithful to them. They are still his people. Yes, the doors have been opened wider and they might not agree. Yes, the family of God is a whole lot bigger than they imagine and they don't like it. Yes, it looks a whole lot different, but God still loves Israel and will remain faithful because Paul writes, it's only by grace that God operates. If for God, it's our ability to modify our behavior that regulates our relationship with God, well, then grace is nothing. It's grace that opens the doors to the Gentile, and it's grace that keeps God's love for the Israelites intact. Mercy is how God's story ends. Love always carries the plot line to the final scene. Grace is the ending to all of God's stories. This isn't a Titanic moment where a tragic ending is all we can conceive of. No, the ending to this story, Paul suggests, is more like Beauty and the Beast. Think It's a Wonderful Life. Think Little Miss Sunshine or Indiana Jones. Think an ending to all our stories that is better than we could ever imagine. A couple questions for you folks. In light of this chapter, can you name a book or a movie that ends tragically? Can you name a book or a movie that has a happy ending? And then a second question, what type of ending to your story do you believe God is working in you?